Hello, beautiful souls. It's Kelly from Energetically Inspired. So, excuse my attire. I've been trying on some clothes for a weekend event this weekend. So, just trying to work out what I want to wear and cleaning out the closet, And I've been journaling and thinking about stuff in relation to something I'm going to share in my Immersion into Yourself. So, just talking about some of the stuff I've learnt in the last little while in relation to the masculine and feminine, right? And you guys have heard me talk about this a bit lately. And that masculine and feminine, right, lives within us, right? We all have those two types of energy within us. And we generally seem to exist in one side of that more commonly in different parts of our lives. So it might be in our relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or even with our children. We polarize in different quadrants of that. And there's actually 4 quadrants, so the light and the dark of the masculine and the feminine, right? And most people seem to think, hey Shane, most people seem to think that dark is the shadow and the unhealthy stuff, right? And but it's not. It's actually related to the dark is related to the lower chakra centers, right? So understanding what those lower chakras are. Yes, thanks, Josh. And knowing that the light relates to the higher chakras, okay? So there's the dark and light in the masculine and feminine, which creates the 4 quadrants. And for me, I've been really researching this stuff because I'm always looking at being the better version of myself and seeing what's happened in my life in the last couple of years, right? Seeing where I was in my relationship with my ex-husband, being very much in the light feminine. But, some of that was in the unhealthy parts of the light feminine, because to be in our light part of the quadrant, we actually need to contain the polarity. So the light and the dark parts, and that's the masculine and the feminine. So for me, I didn't always have the best boundaries with my ex-husband, and then over time when I started to express that I wanted these boundaries, what's happened is my polarity changed, but his polarity didn't. So what happens is there's then those, it's like having 2 negatives, and we start pushing apart instead of actually flowing and being pulled together. And that's the effect of the magnetic polarity in the masculine and feminine, right? Because there's a positive and negative, and they pull together. So seeing this space in my relationships previously, and just seeing how what happens then is, even in my as the mother and in that relationship, I was very much in my light feminine, right? The nurturer, the maiden, the mother. And then when I became the single mother, I flipped into the dark masculine, right? And that's very normal. The pendulum swings. And we actually are, what's happening is we're trying to become more balanced. So, but I had to be the provider, and, I was sustaining the stability. I became very focused and driven, and that's all part of that dark masculine, right? And so what was happening is I was integrating that, becoming much more stronger in my boundaries, learning to stand my ground and speak my truth, but also still containing that love and the softness of the feminine. So really bringing that into play. And so that meant that I started to become more balanced in those 2 quadrants, right? And therefore what happened is I started to flip into my dark feminine, which she is much more of the central. I started to learn to own my sexuality, my sensuality, and this fierceness of myself, right, in this space. So what happened when I flipped into that, I now attracted men more in their light masculine area, right? So it was very interesting to see that polarity flip, and how all of a sudden, and what happened is then what we start to do is the things that we don't feel whole within ourselves, we start to seek outside of ourselves, not always knowing we're doing this, because our soul seeks to be whole again, seeks love, and that's containing all 4 of those quadrants, right? So wherever we're not feeling complete or whole, we actually start to seek that in the relationships. So we're seeking externally, and we really start to love those things about somebody else, or we're triggered because we're in a shadow. We actually are so not owning that. Whereas for me, it's like, oh, I really love that. I want to integrate more of that into my life. So that starts to bring me into more of a balanced place, right? So it's been very interesting to see how this happens. And even in the masculine and feminine side of things, or the polarities, like say with my children, a good example that may happen very commonly is that in my household, depending on where I am in that polarity, they will polarize the other. So if I was very much in the nurturing space, these boys would be much more in their masculine energy, right? And so I'm being in the feminine, they're being in the masculine, but they might go to their fathers and he's much more in his masculine, and automatically children have a very, very gentle way of being able to polarize. They just feel in the flow. They're not controlled yet, and they're still building that. So they might flip into the more light. They might be more sooky, they might be more soft, you know, and they're taking on mum's polarity into dad's house. And vice versa, when they come to me, they're taking on some of his polarity of the masculine and coming to me. And that's why a lot of times parent, when they're in split up relationships, like, they remind me so much of, you know, my ex, right? And it's because that's what they're growing up with, right? This is what they've learned, is in what's ideal feminine and masculine. So we have to hope that the other parent is portraying a healthy space for that, or we need to help guide them into that place. So I've just found this really, really interesting, and seeing how the archetypes balance into some of these polarities, how even the light and masculine have got similar components, but yes, again, whether that's in the, you know, higher senses, the feminine is all about receiving, the masculine is much more about giving. The feminine seeks love, but she's actually, we are love. So what we are seeking is the wholeness of our love of ourselves again, right? And the masculine generally are seeking to freedom, but ultimate freedom is love. Someone's going to give you all the freedom in the world when they love you divinely to allow you to be you, right? And so that is love. So they are really seeking love on the other side of freedom, right? And they want to provide, and they have very much purpose driven. So there's so much, men are very more in their mind, and females are much more embodied, intuitive. So men are conscious, and feminine is very like feeling into their body, very much more on the emotional side of things, right? So being guided by the emotion and the flow. They're much more flow. That's why women can multitask a million things at once. Men are very singular. And that even comes in the way that they text, right? Women, we tell this massive story and we want to share every bit of our world with our girlfriends. Yeah, we went to the gym and I just did this and I've been listening to music. And men are like, you know, a message comes through and they're very like, yep, I'll meet you there at this time. You know, or they're saying what they're thinking, right? They're straight to the point. They're not this fluffy all over the place. And then even in nature or in the world ourselves around us, sometimes we seek the masculine or feminine, you know, in nature, or, well, feminine is actually nature. So she's like the ocean and more like the forest, the rainforest, and that untouched beauty of the world, right? And the masculine is the big skyscraper, is the structure, right? It's structured. So you will see a lot of men that is common, like when I've read a lot of books, they say that a man, say, that's really, really, really driven around, say, being a surfer and loves the ocean. So really diving deep into the ocean. The ocean is so feminine. She's flowing and she's, you know, she's got, that's what waves do, right? And they support a boat. But at the same time, they're that emotional fierceness that they can take it down at the same time, right? So that is really depths of feminine. And so there's a lot of like men that seek the feminine in nature and then have a lot of time committing to a female because she has needs, right? Like the nature has less needs, they can just outsource that. And so it's very common that surfers never want to commit in long-term relationships or just want complete freedom and you know, because they're outsourcing that, right? So really seeing how this stuff plays in our lives, and where, you know, somebody, let's say if I was a businesswoman and I was really focused and driven and I worked hard and blah, 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 it's very common that those, or men, seek to be the submissive in the relationship, right? Because they just want to surrender. So what's happening is they're seeking the polarity of just letting go and letting someone else be in control, right? And so this so commonly happens in all kinds of, and so understanding where we're sitting in our polarity, why we're attracting certain things, so whether it's because we're lacking that in our lives, or whether, you know, we want to gain more of that, but our soul's seeking balance, it's seeking love, it's seeking wholeness again, right? And allowing us to evolve and heal through this space. So knowing where we are in our quadrants, masculine, feminine, have we integrated parts of those things? You know, are we integrating our sexuality, our drive, our focus, our softness? Can we be strong and soft completely? You know, can we be the warrior but also the caring, you know, maiden at the same time, completely. And we just need to know how to do that and how to start to play in these roles. And then, like, for me, it's been really watching what happens in my life. You know, the people that are being attracted into my life now, as in the men, you know, even the relationships that I contain, definitely much more balanced in their energy fields as well, much more open people, much more into the conscious, but also very embodied people, right? And because that they resonate to my energy and my essence, right? And so we are all attracted to each other because we're all that similar vibration, you know. But in relationships, we will commonly seek a polarity in there, right? So just, yeah, keep an eye on that. It's really, like I said, there's so much to this, you know, and I'm journaling all this stuff. So I just wanted to share a little bit, because I'm going to go and download a heap of stuff on my people in the program as an extra, because this is that next level of evolving. It's the next level of being the best version we can be, being the best partner we can be, or the best mother or father that we can be. Understanding these things makes us, you know, more powerful. How do we run our business? How can we be intuitive and in the feminine and allowing that guidance to come through, but at the same time driven and focused and having boundaries, you know? And so this becomes our healthy quadrants. And if we really can master this, we can have the most amazing relationships with people, because we'll be able to polarize. We'll be able to be that submissive person or that like fierce goddess, right? And we'll be able to balance each other out. When things like, it feels like the flame's going out a bit, we can spice things up by flipping the polarity a little bit and allowing each other to grow and feel and things like that. And just for some reason it's coming up now, is this is something I see commonly in my healing sessions, is when someone's chakras are out, right? Like I had a mother and a daughter that came to see me, and the daughter's solar plexus was massive, like overbalanced, right? She was fierce, and they found her full of fire, and you know, and they were such calm people. But the mother's solar plexus, her identity around herself was shut down, right? And so what's happening is the daughter was balancing out the energy within the household. So we need to understand, when we are imbalanced, energy seeks balance. So it's going to attract or create that polarity somewhere in your life, right? So whatever is within is reflected externally. We need to understand, to have a balanced life, we need to contain balance within ourselves, right? Or like I said, sometimes flip into the other for that fun and that passion and that magnetic force of pull, right? That's what it's about, right? It's allowing that fun to come into it. So have a think about that. Have a think about where you're sitting in your quadrant at the moment, right? Because I definitely know I'm definitely much more in my dark feminine at the moment. And I'm really enjoying that. But I know there's part of my light masculine I really need to integrate, and that's coming in at the moment and being really seen and witnessed. But I'm going to continue to own my dark feminine and allow her to play, right? Because I love it. It's fun. And still I'm that maiden when my kids are there, the light feminine, and I'm still the dark masculine in my business as well, to keep focused and driven and keep things flowing, right? And yeah, it's all part of that fun, right? So go and have a think about it. It's just something I was putting together and I wanted to share, guys. You know what I'm like. I love to share. Anyway, and then I'm going to go play with some more clothes and work out what I'm wearing for the weekend. Get some beautiful events on, and, you know. Anyway, and untouched, raw, it's rainy, and I'm not going anywhere today at this stage. So, yeah. Oh, maybe later. But anyway, guys, love yous. You know. Anyway, have a good day.